Welcome back, pirate crew. It's me, your captain, Yeehaw Yadam, and I'm back with another video today. This video is going to be a little bit different. It's basically going to be a comprehensive deck profile to all the mono-colored leaders from the structure decks and from the set. Now, it's also going to have a nice little twist where I've heard this sentence constantly. I just can't afford Zoros. I can't afford Law. I can't afford X, Y, or Z cards. It's just out of my budget. This game is too expensive. And to those people, I kind of agree. Yes, the game is a little expensive. It's gotten a little out of hand, guys. It's, coming from Market Watch guy. But there's still a place for budget decks, and we can still succeed with these budget decks. So I've decided to compile a little library of budget decks for you guys, where you guys can go ahead and get some, a starting point, and then you can obviously make them your own from there. So with that, and without further ado, let's get to the first of the budget decks, Monkey D. Luffy. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, the rest of the lists in this video are going to be, I'll be very confident in. This one, I'm the least confident in, and because of the fact that the way that I enjoy playing Luffy is with a nice top end. I like to play the Shanks, I like to play the promo Luffys, I like to play these big cards that I can defend with my 2Ks and my spells. This version, because of the $15 budget constraint, I am missing that big top end, but I still have a lot of great things going for me in this deck, in terms of I have Otama Pistol, I have Round Table, I have Hawk and Jambe and Guard Point. I have a lot of counter in my spells, and this is a really good spell lineup that you will see mirrored in my next list. But I also have a fantastic lineup of characters in terms of Nico Robin, fantastic 2K counters, Searcher plus Sucker, the 1K counter, and then I also have a value engine in terms of Uda, Yasop, and Monkey D. Luffy, as well as Brook. So this is my top end for the deck, which is not a big top end, but it's certainly a good top end with a really nice value engine, great event cards. So I definitely can see this deck going far. But it also is a deck that has a lot of room for improvement, in my opinion, to fit my playstyle. Obviously, if you haven't seen my Monkey D. Luffy deck profile, go check it out, and you can see what I mean in terms of how I enjoy the deck as opposed to this one. But I do think this one will allow you to take some games in your locals, as well as be, in my opinion, pretty competitive for a very low budget range. But Zoro in a budget setting just seems to be a little bit better, almost maybe the king in a budget setting. Not only do these 2Ks Usopp, Sanji, as well as I don't play Brook in this deck because I have other cards, but these two cards become actual offensive cards as opposed to just defensive cards, which is kind of crazy. You put one Dawn on Usopp, that triggers its effect, one Dawn on Zoro, and he's already a 5K that just attacks at that point, which is amazing. Sanji goes from a 7K attacker to an 8K attacker, and then we have these vanillas in Sai and Vivi that just constantly just chip your opponent at 555. Not only that, but our Uda, which is our value engine, we can actually go and max out on her because she is insanely good in Zoro. She can buy back the starter deck Zoro, buy back these, buy back almost everything in the deck that is in Brook and Monkey D. Luffy. She is really good in Zoro, as you guys can see if you guys have looked back at the deck profile, or not the deck profile, the video that I had where it was Crocodile versus Zoro. Duval was playing a version that is very akin to this, obviously with Zoros and things like that, but very similar to something along these lines with a strong early game. Basically, all of this portion of your deck is your early game, then you have this as your top end and value engine, and Zoro can just use his ability to make your cards even better. I also play a very similar lineup, except for the absence of Diablo Jumbo. We have Guard Point, Red Hawk, Round Table, and Jet Pistol, which are again amazing event cards. And obviously, depending on your playstyle, you can lower the Guard Point, increase the Hawk, take out the Round Table. Really do what you want and make the deck your own. But I think this is a very good starting point. You get two structure decks, you have $15. This might not even be $15 from the set. I'll be real with you. This might even be like $5, and you got yourself a deal. So this Zoro deck, very confident in. For sure, you can top with this deck at your locals, not a problem. Super duper strong, super duper cheap. I like it. And here we have Eustace Captain Kid. Now, Eustace Captain Kid, our structure deck green leader, is amazing in my opinion. I think he's one of the best leaders in the game. And this version of the deck, we're really not missing much except for Trafalgar Law. We're missing Trafalgar Law. That card has really gotten away from us. That card has gone into $25. Just like Zoro is now really expensive, Law has matched him. So without Law, we still have a really nice split of 5 drops in X-Drake and Basil Hawkins. These cards are very, very good, especially in the mirror match. Basil Hawkins is a humongous threat and a really good answer to many, many board states. If you pair him up with Okiku, Punk Gibson, or any suspending cards like Cat Viper, Basil Hawkins just starts eating the board alive. For 1 Dawn, he's now at 7, and he can just 7 restand, and he just starts chumping the board. Many times, if you can leave him unsuspended, I'd choose to do so, because this card is very, very threatening and something that you really, really want to protect. Unfortunately, green just lacks a lot of combo, but we're still maxing out on 4 Izo and 4 Abos, as well as 3 Punk Gibson to try and protect our cards as much as we can. It just so happens that our cards are very expensive, so let's say we were going on 1. We have our great curve of Bonnie, Okiku, Basil Hawkins, 7-drop Kid. That is the curve. If we're going second, we really don't have anything that really fits, but we have a lot of reactionary cards in terms of Cat Viper, Izos, and then we can finally get to our Captain Kid while defending it with a card up. So the way that I would choose to play this deck is let them hit you offensively, interact with their board as much as you can in terms of Cat Vipers and Izos, and then sit back behind Big Daddy and let him take the wheel as you outvalue your opponent and eventually outvalue the game. It's very easy to have 15 cards in your hand with this deck, but don't forget that you have to kill your opponent, guys. At some point in time, you have to finish the game, so don't just sit back with a billion cards in hand. Be a little offensive, and that's why Uroj is here, just so you don't really truly sit back the entire time. Especially against purple, they will punish you the heaviest for that sort of playstyle. And then, alright, you didn't like Eustace Captain Kid, you're more of an Odin dude. I get you, understandable. Odin's a little bit different, that you get to actually play 4 Momos and 4 Bonnies. If you look at the stats here, unfortunately my head is covering it. We have 27 Wano and 24 Supernova, so we should almost never brick or miss or whiff or whatever you want to call it off the Bonnie or the Momo. But not only that, we have really, really good cards in terms of Denjito, X-Drake, Basil Hawkins as our 5s. We have 2 Kinemons. This deck not only has more value in terms of Momo and Bonnie, we also have more top end because we played 3 Kinemon. Denjiro is huge, a 7k for 5 that also does things big. And then we also have a 3-3 split at the top. The only thing is that we lost our Punk Gibson and played Waterfall instead. With the loss of Waterfall, maybe Basil Hawkins isn't as good, but this card is just too good in the mirror match, as well as in some matchups versus decks that really like to go into the board. Our Okiku Hawkins, Okiku Izus will really truly punish them as much as possible. So same game plan, sit back behind Daddy, but we have an alternative game-winning condition with Kinemon Okiku. If you can play Kinemon for 6, trigger its effect to summon an Okiku, that's combo. That's really, really nice. Because you can put then you don't really have to develop board state, because those 2 cards on their own are truly going to chip at your opponent, right? Okiku will swing with a couple Dawn under it, let's say 3 Dawn, 8k, suspend something. Kinemon now, so you're swinging for 8. Kinemon with 1 Dawn is now 7. Swing for 7, restand Okiku. And now we're just eating the board. For an investment of 4 Dawn, we have now created an 8k attacker, a 7k attacker that has suspended something. If you combo this off with any assortment of cards in terms of Killer, Basil Hawkins, or X-Drake, you are truly plowing the board and also developing a lot of pressure towards face or towards other characters. Really, really like this. The only problem with Odin is obviously Odin's effect is just not as good as Eustace Captain Kid's, but it's pretty solid if you ask me. You can develop your cards, and then at the end of your turn, after you make your play, you can trigger Odin's effect, dump a card, and then gain 2 Dawn, and in doing so, you keep your Paradise Waterfalls always active, and you can actually play Eustace Captain Kid on curve on 8, use its effect, use Odin's effect to gain the 2 Dawn back, so then you use those 2 Dawn to keep a Paradise Waterfall up, as well as put 1 on the Captain, and you're set on curve. Now, granted, will that happen often? Maybe not, but it's available, and that's kind of cool. Moving on to our blue deck. Guys, after the profile on the Crocodile, I noticed I'm kind of a potato, dude. And I completely forgot the fact that you can totally play Jinbei instead of Teach in your deck. And if you do that, you're probably in a better position. Jinbei, the fact that he bottom decks is a lot better for us than if we're jumping up to the hand, right? So the reason I was playing Teach is because I'm a little too used to Luffy, right? So Teach has a better stat line, obviously has the 1k, 4 for 1 for 4 is much better than a 4-2-0. The issue is that Jinbei just synergizes with our deck in terms of we go 4 bottom deck, use the exact 4 to flip the board, and we're in a much better game state, not necessarily immediately, but over time. It also has a trigger effect, which is really, really cute. The more triggers we have in your deck, the more punishing that we have, and the fact that we have access to Sentamaru, we can go ahead and filter through our deck, make sure that we have a Jinbei, or understand if we have a Jinbei in our life, and by doing so, we can play a little bit weirder, which is also nice. This is something I miss from the limited battle series, that our Sentamaru allowed us to see the triggers in our life, but we just weren't playing any triggers, so like it was nice, but also unnecessary. So we still playing the 4 of the Trafalgar Law, the Miss All Sunday. Again, I cannot stress enough how broken this card is, but again, Miss All Sunday, Miss All Sunday, Miss All Sunday, she broken. So we're playing a 4-4 split of that. We're playing Jinbei instead of Teach. We're playing Alvida to up our 2k count as we've lost some of our spells or event cards that we're using, so Alvida is kind of supplementing that. We're still playing 4 of the blocker, 4 Sentamaru. We're playing 1 of this Pacifista, 3 of this Pacifista. Our little Warlord package here, as well as our fantastic top end in 2-2-3-3. We upped our Overheat and played Love Love Beam. This is solid. Honestly, this is basically structure deck, less than $15 worth of cards, and we're set. This is I'm really proud of this one. I think this one's a very, again, competitive deck. It's just really, really hard, and something you're going to have to really burn some calories on to get some games under it. There's a couple decks that can just play a little bit easier, play a little bit more snooze, a little laid back, but definitely Crocodile isn't one of them, and something that you really have to think about. Also have to think about time. This deck has a really tough time at ending the game, but it's really good at controlling the board, and in doing so, you have to be very cognizant of the time rules. And Doffy is pretty close. We have a very similar top end in terms of 2-2-3-2. I'm not a Mihawk enjoyer in Doffy. I can't put Mihawk to 3. I can't do it. I can't. Every time I've played Mihawk in my deck, there's like 4 of them in my hand. I don't even play 4. Why is there 4 in my hand? And he just never comes down. So I can't do it, guys. I'm sorry. I do see a lot of topping Doffy lists play 3 Mihawks, but because this is a budget challenge, it even helps me to play only 2. So on the bright side. We still have a very interesting low curve in terms we always have to play the 4 of the 1-drop. So Trafalgar Law is here. We've got Perona. We've got our Don Quixote. So we have our great little bottom end. We're playing Bon Clay instead of Alvida because Bon Clay can search our Desert Spada and Overheat, which is nice. It's kind of cute. It's summonable. It is a 4k for 1 Dawn investment. Can become an attacker. Not terrible. But just another 2k. I felt like I was missing 2ks earlier. Teach as opposed to Jinbei. Then we're using Bartholomew Kuma as our Pacifista engine. It's just another cheap, budget-friendly engine that I do think is really nice in Doflamingo, because summoning a free 6k is always chef's kiss. So we have that. We're still playing our little engine here, and don't forget that this Bartholomew Kuma, by the way, is a great Warlord of the Sea, so it can be summoned by Doflamingo's effect, and if it's rested and they attack into it because they want to deal with it because it's a 5k blocker, now they got a Pacifista to deal with. It's really, really nice. Some would say it's a little sacky, but in terms of a budget-friendly Flamingo list, I do think that it's very, very nice. We also have our Virgo to kind of challenge our A-drop kids. We have to play this 7-7-7 top end because we have to have cards that contest the Eustace Captain if they ever get there. Try to summon these cards before they get to that point in time. If you're playing versus red, half of these cards are unnecessary, and basically we're gonna beat them with this and our very, very powerful events. So use that to our advantage and use these for our control games. But other than that, your leader is very aggressive, as it's always almost always hitting for 7 to trigger its effect in combination of Perona, Desert Spada, or Don Quixote blocker. Simple enough. Pressure, pressure, pressure. And finally, we've got our purple list. Now, I was gonna make a king list, but guys, as much as it is a budget-friendly, fun deck profile video, come on, man. Don't make me make a video on King. So I just did Kaido, and I think this is good enough. This is, funnily enough, one of the more expensive of the budget engines because we're playing a 3-3 of Kaido as well as King, and we also have Thunder Bagua. So these 3-3-3 cards right here that you see really kind of start racking up the budget money, right? This card is like a $4 card. This card's like a $3 to $4 card. So I kind of went a little bit above $15, but let's not talk about it. So we have our 2k counters in terms of Old Man, Sasaki, and X-Ray. The reason we're playing Old Man instead of Ulti is only because the Old Man can contest early board states. This deck does not really have cheap characters at all. our first attacking character comes at the 3 cost line in terms of Sasaki, and Sasaki, you really don't always want to summon him. You only want to summon him in board states where you don't have Onigashima. So we have Old Man in terms of as a way that we can deal with Bonnies, Momonosuke's, these field spell searchers. He can come down and deal with them. But other than that, he's just a 2K. You can also unironically play the little smile card, so that when you play him, you remove a bad card from your deck, but then you're playing a bad card in your deck. Okay, but then you can pitch it with Queen. Gaming? Anyone? No? Yeah. So I didn't include Smiley. I think it's kind of troll, but that's what the Old Man's here for. If you want to play the smile card, there's also that. I guess it's kind of dank, but the Old Man is just a 2K counter that can sometimes be an aggressive card to deal with the field spells. And you have both of the two drop blockers at maximum capacity because they're fantastic. 2 more of the 2Ks. The better of the 2Ks, better than ulti, would be Sasaki, and then you have X-Drake that's an attacker that can also dump cards from hand. We're maxing out on Queen, maxing out on Babanuki. This card is huge, man. I actually really like it in purple, not gonna lie. The more I've summoned him, the more I'm an enjoyer of the Babanuke. He's very solid. Then a 3-3 split of the Kings. I do think that these cards are like these. This is very good top end. You basically only need a certain amount of these to win the game, but definitely you want to see them at some amount. The budget constraints really stop me from going 4 on this or 4 here because it would really break the bank. But these cards are definitely the cards that you might want to up to as much as you can. And then we just sit back on our Blast Breath, our Thunderbagwas, Brachio Bomber, and Onigashima. Brachio Bomber has kind of made its way into purple once again because of the fact that you can always curve out with purple. You have Stage on their second turn, Bomber on the third, and then 10 drop on the fourth. That is just something that can happen, right? The fact that we play these cards in our deck, if we win the die roll and go first, we pass on turn 1, we Oniga on turn 2, then we go Brachio Bomber turn 3, and we're at Kaido on turn 4. Very, very solid. At the end of the day, this card is always a clock because it's a 12k swinger. It's almost impossible to get blocked, and the fact that you can come down, blow up the board, and then apply pressure in terms of leader, it's just too good. This deck has a lot of good things going for it. It's very strong. A lot of big cards, a lot of defense, a lot of interaction in terms of your on plays. Kaido, he's really been surprising me more and more. I personally don't get to play a lot of Kaido myself, but every time I play against it, it does feel like a strong deck. It feels like I'm fighting Kaido himself. So with that, guys, I think that's going to wrap up today's video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that these deck profiles serve as a way to give you guys a starting point. Any of the new players, I know that One Piece is a vast card game. I've met a lot of people that this is their first card game and they really don't have any card game background. So I hope videos like this really help you, give you guys some backbone in terms of a deck so that you can get it and then make it your own. You know, you liked this card, you didn't like this card, you know, you agree with this, you disagree with this. And at the end of the day, I don't think there is the best deck. I don't think that there's a list that's the golden list, the list that, you know, the one list that binds all the other lists together. I just don't think that that exists. It's a kind of a mystery, or a myth, sorry. It's a myth that people think that there is the best list. I think in this game, it's so vast. It's a card game at the end of the day. There's a lot of variance that any list that you like is the way that you should do it. You should play your deck the way that you enjoy, play cards that you enjoy in the deck that you have found to be, you know, every time you summon them, you're like, I like to summon this card, I like to use this card, it's always had value, it's worked for me. And make the deck your own, because at the end of the day, you're going to be playing a ton of rounds, and you might as well enjoy the deck you're playing, have faith in it, be confident in it, and don't just play cards because you're like, so-and-so told me to play this card. Play the card because you're like, I like this card in my deck. That'll give you the confidence to win more games and a better understanding of your deck. And with that, guys, if you like this video, leave a like down below. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave a comment so we can talk about it in the discussion section of the comment section of YouTube. And as always, if you haven't joined the Pirate Crew just yet, consider subscribing. It would mean a lot. And as always, guys, I will see you on the next one. Peace.